Let me just put it out there right at the beginning. There's no greater franchise than Predator in terms of combining sci-fi, horror, and action genres. Ever since the classic 1987 film Predator graced our eyeballs, things have never been the same again. Now, just a year shy of reaching its 4th decade as a franchise, the Predator series is still the juggernaut it was back then. However, that journey has been far from easy, as 39 years is a long time to keep the fans coming back for more. I think, therefore, it's only natural that over these years, the people behind the scenes have attempted all sorts of things to keep the franchise fresh and engaging for all its fans. The primary way in which they've done this is by giving us different versions of Predators and explaining their lore. In this video, I'm compiling all the weirdest Predator variants over the years, across movies, comics, and games. Remember, this video will contain some minor spoilers. Now that you've been warned, let's begin. Predalien. Allow me to kick things off with the creature, which on paper should be the pinnacle of evolution, considering it's made out of both the titular species of the Predator and Alien franchise. The Predalien is exactly what you might have guessed. It's created when a facehugger impregnates a yautja, and the resulting creature that emerges after the host dies is this abomination. I think it's pretty clear that a xenomorph that's born from a host not only inherits certain physical traits from them, but also is inherently stronger than the unfortunate individual they burst out of. The Predalien is therefore no exception to this rule, as it's quite clearly more powerful than the xenomorphs born from human hosts and the average yautja. It also inherits the yautja's dreadlocks along with its powerful mandibles, all of which, in my opinion, elevates it from most of its kin by a country mile. We get to see just how terrifying these creatures are during the events of the Alien vs. Predator duel comics that came out in 1995. In that comic, we get to see a Predalien in action for the first time, and it takes the combined efforts of both the yautja and the humans, after setting their differences aside temporarily, to take down this monster. Let me just give you some context on where this creature stands in terms of its notoriety in this universe. If a Predalien is ever born and the yautja hear about it, the creature is immediately marked for a hunt. This is because the predators consider them to be abominations. Their very existence is a stain upon the yautja culture, leading them to be culled without prejudice. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? The yautja, no matter how brutal, have a code of honor they adhere to. In their society, where might is right, just imagine not only dying to your prey, but also giving birth to a freak of nature like the Predalien. The yautja never really hunt out of hatred. For them, a hunt is part of their culture. I think you can go so far as to call it sacred. I hope you could see how the existence of the Predalien is almost sacrilegious to them, and why they would hunt it with pure hatred. Like I already said, the Predalien is much stronger than your average yautja, due to which only the most experienced hunters are dispatched to take it out. The Predalien's almost certainly right up there with some of the strongest creatures on this list, but it doesn't hold the title of the strongest. To find out who does, stick with me right to the end of this video. Predalien Queen. The next specimen I have for you is another xenomorph hybrid that is so rare and dangerous that encountering one would almost certainly spell a painful and horrific demise for that unlucky person. Not that encountering any sort of xenomorph would be any less brutal. The reason behind my statement is the fact that in this case, you would be kept barely alive by this horrific monstrosity and used as a breeding ground for her damned offspring, all while watching countless others like you succumbing to their fates as you count down the minutes until it's your turn. The Predalien Queen is, for all intents and purposes, the same entity as any other xenomorph queen. The key difference lies in her appearance and origins. While the Predalien Queen has the same color as the rest of her smaller kin, I noticed that she distinctly lacks the iconic dreadlocks that are present in the yautja and the other Predaliens. The queen, however, does have the mandibles and some bony protrusion around her faceplate. There's conflicting theories regarding the origins of the Predalien Queen. According to some, the creature was created artificially by Dr. Samuel Kadinsky in a lab on LV-742, a mining colony, while the Alien vs. Predator Requiem film shows us a juvenile Predalien Queen that seems to have been born naturally. Well, at least as naturally as xenomorphs go. By the time her activities were discovered by the yautja on LV-742, from what she displays in battle, I think it's safe to say that she had evolved past her status as queen into an empress. I don't mean that as mere wordplay, as the next evolution of a xenomorph queen is an empress, which is basically an upgrade on all fronts. If you thought the existence of Predalien Predaliens was something that's considered an absolute blight by the Yautja, I think you can picture what the existence of a Predalien Queen means. In the event that such a creature like this is discovered, the Yautja send their military caste warriors. You have to understand how big of a deal that is, because the Yautja never deploy these guys unless it's all-out war. Each of them are equipped with the highest grade technology available to their kind and are ruthless elites who have earned their place in bloody battlefields where even the strongest Yautja might be overwhelmed. The only other time that the military caste has been known to have been deployed outside of war is for hunting xenomorph hives that have grown beyond control, which essentially puts them in the crosshairs of a queen. The Predalien Queen remains one of the most deadly predator variants because not only is she deadly by herself, she can also create an entire army of Predaliens, which I don't think I need to tell you is not good news for anyone. Upgrade/assassin predator. So far, I've covered predators who are technically xenomorphs, but now it's time to get down to some actual Yautja variants. Although this one's not technically a product of nature as well. Making his appearance in the 2018 film The Predator, Assassin Predator is a towering figure standing close to 11 feet in height and much bulkier than the other Yautja. Even at a glance, you can see that this guy was either a genetic freak of nature or was something created in a lab. The Upgrade Predator is confirmed to have been created by splicing the genes of various creatures to birth a being that was still Yautja but greatly enhanced. Now, I've already mentioned how much the Yautja detest anything having to do with hybridization and the tainting of their bloodlines. But surprisingly, the Upgrade Predator is exactly a product of that. I don't think there's really a clear explanation for how he was allowed to be created, considering the Yautja honor code. Many fans theorize that this predator was probably a result of genetic experiments done by clans condemned by the Yautja society as bad blood. Regardless, he was the ultimate killing machine, as he outclassed his regular kindred in all aspects physically. We first encounter the Upgrade Predator chasing the Fugitive Predator across space, as the latter attempts to deliver a secret technology to the humans on Earth in order to help them stave off a predator invasion. In their conflict, Upgrade Predator follows the Fugitive all the way to Earth, and so begins his onslaught. One particular thing I noticed about Upgrade was the fact that despite not wearing his helmet, we still see him using all the ocular features present in a predator's headgear. My only explanation for this is the Upgrade Predator probably received some sort of visual enhancements and augmentations as well during his creations. Whether you think this Yautja was anathema or not, I think we can all agree that he definitely was an upgrade. Fugitive Predator. The Fugitive Predator, as mentioned earlier, appears alongside the Upgrade Predator in the 2018 film, The Predator. Remember how I said the Upgrade Predator follows the Fugitive all the way to Earth? So apparently the latter's entry into Earth's atmosphere wasn't exactly the smoothest one. During his space battle with Upgrade Predator, Fugitive's ship had been heavily damaged, which leads it to crash land on our planet. There, he's found by a soldier called Quinn McKenna, who recovers the Predator's helmet and wrist gauntlet, following which a skirmish breaks out between McKenna's group and the Fugitive. Fortunately for the humans, Quinn manages to subdue the Fugitive purely by accident, but not before he has killed several of Quinn's men. I don't know if it's just me, but the whole way in which the Fugitive gets captured kind of felt lame to me. Imagine escaping from your home planet, full of killers, pursued by arguably the strongest predator to have lived, only to be taken out by a fluke by a human? I might not have the senses of a predator, but I can smell poor writing from a mile off. Anyway, back to the topic. Soon the Fugitive is captured by people working at Project Stargazer, a secret CIA initiative to study Yautjas and other alien threats. I don't think I need to tell you how this turns out for them once the Fugitive awakens. He soon cuts a bloody path through the facility as he escapes, only to be caught by the Upgrade Predator, who rips his skull and spine from his body, killing him instantly after a brief, futile struggle. During his time at Project Stargazer, it's confirmed that the Fugitive had human DNA in him as well. So clearly he was a product of genetic tampering just like the Upgrade, which makes me wonder, why were they against each other since they were both clearly outcasts for their society? I mean, when it's revealed towards the end that the Fugitive had been trying to deliver a predator killer weapon to help humanity, it makes sense because he must have been treated like crap by his buddies. Plus, he's part human. His motivations therefore make complete sense, unlike that of his killer. What both these predators represent to me is the fact that the Yautja society is not above hypocrisy, and not this perfect, stringent, honor-bound culture that we're led to believe. Infected/black goo predator. Well, we've seen some really weird predators so far, but this next one for me really borders on the fine line between scary and stupid. In 2014, Dark Horse Comics would release a 4-part comic series called Alien vs. Predator: Fire and Stone, whose purpose, I believe, was to bridge the storylines from the movies Alien, Predator, and Prometheus. I won't waterboard you with a 20-minute long recounting of what happens in that comic, so just let me break it down for you. Basically, the comic shows a group of mercenaries trying to escape when they're cornered by a creature called the Eldon, who's a monstrosity created from a synthetic, aka android, that was infected by the engineer's black goo. You know that stuff you see in the Prometheus films? Well, yeah, instead of killing the android, the goo mutates him into something else entirely. Now, Eldon has gathered a bunch of xenomorphs as his pals and wants to take out the man due to whom all this began, named Francis. However, Francis is being held by a mercenary who's ready to trade him to the Eldon when the Yautja board their ship. Yeah, I know there's a lot of things to take in, so let me cut it short. During the battle between the Yautja and the Eldon, one of the predators gets infected by the goo and begins to transform into this gargantuan monster almost immediately. While the upgrade predator still looked like a Yautja, this thing looks like a nightmare pretending to be a predator. I mean, it's just massive, mindless, and violent. Thankfully, it's put down in the end by the villains themselves, but not before he goes on a rampage. That is the last we see of this short-lived abomination. Four-armed predator. It seems pretty strange to me that for a race which hates mutants and hybrids so much within their species, the Yautja sure seem to have a fair few of them in their society. This is the case for the next entry on my list today, the four-armed predator. I think, judging by its name, that it's fairly obvious why this Yautja is called by this name. Appearing in the one-shot comic book by Dark Horse Comics called Predators Surviving Life from 2010, which I believe is a direct sequel to the 2010 film Predators starring Adrian Brody, the four-armed predator is a deadly foe. I believe that it's never actually been clarified whether this Yautja is a mutant or a result of genetic experimentation like the upgrade in Fugitive Predators. However, thanks to its four arms, it's exceptionally powerful and has access to all the Yautja weaponry and biological advantages. It's introduced into the Game Preserve planet where it's meant to fight and kill Royce, who's Adrian Brody's character, and Izzy, who's played by Alice Braga in the film. The four-armed predator proves to be more than a match for the two and pushes them to the absolute brink before eventually being outsmarted and killed by them. I don't think that we've ever seen a four-armed predator since then, but you never know what the future holds. Feral Predator. The 2022 film Prey has to be one of my all-time favorite Predator films after the original. Over the years, in my opinion, the franchise has kind of forgotten its horror roots and began to lean more on the sci-fi and action elements. What made the first film so great for me was the dread that hung in the air the entire time, as Arnie and his pals faced this invisible killer that was taking them down for no logical reason. What Prey does is bring back this feeling, and a lot of that has to do with how they portray the Predator in this film, which I'll be calling the Feral Predator. This predator just looks and feels more primal in nature, but at the same time, he's methodical and calculative. Everything from his unique helm, which looks like it's made of bone, to the more rustic-looking armor that diverges from the traditional look of a predator, it screams different and deadly to me. While he does have most of the traditional Yautja arsenal on him, the Feral Predator feels savage in the way it hunts. I love the primitive-looking bolter and the collapsible shield, which all added to him feeling much more grounded and savage. The film, I think, knowingly pushes the narrative that he doesn't overtly rely on his tools. Instead, he overwhelms his opponents with his guile and brutality, just like a predatory animal cornering its prey. This is further accentuated, in my opinion, by the way the film's action is choreographed as well. The fights involve a lot of brawling, close-quarter combat, and traditional show of strength, which doesn't make it look completely like a high-tech alien taking down his enemies. For once in a long time, a predator truly embodied the meaning of its name here, in my honest opinion. Do you think this is a hot take by me? Let me know in the comments. Meta Predators. DC and Dark Horse Comics would release a one-shot crossover special comic in 2001, which gave us, in my opinion, some of the wildest variants of the Predators that I have ever seen. The whole story kicks off when a damaged ship belonging to the villainous Dominators comes crashing into the lunar orbit and is rescued by the Martian Manhunter. However, upon confronting the villains, Jean Jones realizes that the Dominators are not the only threat he has to contend with. Soon, Justice League members across the globe begin to get attacked by this new mysterious mysterious foe that doesn't take them long to figure out that the predators are behind these attacks. The only puzzling bit being, despite them being unmistakably predators, these attackers are using powers and abilities that the League have never seen the Yautja exhibit. The meta-predators, as they're called, possess all the powers that the members of the Justice League have. For instance, there's a speedster predator, a plastic predator, an aqua predator, and even one capable of using psychic powers. I think it's pretty evident to you now that these predators are not the traditional Yautja that you and I are familiar with. Upon further investigation, we learned that the Dominators had managed to capture a group of predators who had landed on a moon they controlled. Using their advanced technology, these villains had cloned the predators and genetically altered them to have the powers to confront and finally eliminate the Justice League. Unfortunately for them, when these Yautja awoke, they instantly killed their creators, while they chased the remaining Dominators to Earth. Once here, they simply began to act on the thing that they had been designed to carry out. Even though it's pretty outlandish, I think we'll probably never get to see another predator hovering above Superman with a cape on. That alone made the entire thing worth it for me. Although this was a pretty fun one-shot concept, I don't see how it can ever translate to the main continuity. Thankfully, it's perfect where it is. Bad Blood Predator. I think I've already mentioned earlier in the video that Bad Blood Predators are essentially the outcast of the Yautja society. Normally, a predator is considered a bad blood for breaking the honor code of his people. Such is the case with this predator seen in the 1993 comic Predator Bad Blood. I believe this is one of those few instances where we see what would actually happen if the Yautja were not governed by their codes. The story takes place in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey, where the community's been hit by deadly waves of crimes that involve indiscriminate and gruesome murders. Judging by the gore and mutilation involved, the logical conclusion that everyone comes to is that these crimes are the work of a serial killer. However, what they don't know is that something far more sinister and deadly is loose in their locality, something that's not even human. I find this predator to be way more frightening than any of the other twisted monstrosities that we've covered so far, because at least those guys were a slave to the way they were built. This Yautja, however, is as close to evil as Predator can get, because it hunts the weak and the innocent instead of worthy prey. Not only that, it disturbingly enjoys the act of murder and revels in the carnage that it's causing. There's no logical explanation behind his actions outside of the fact that this predator is a certified lunatic. Even though he has no special power or gimmick, just the cold-blooded nature of this character sends shivers down my spine. I think for its uniqueness and the terror inspired, the Bad Blood Predator had to be mentioned in this video. Enforcer Predator. The Enforcer Predator is the antithesis of the Bad Blood Predator in my opinion. He's sent by the Yautja to pursue and put down his rogue kin on Earth. This predator is clearly an elite with all the tactical know-hows and usual weapons to kill the Bad Blood Predator. While by himself there isn't anything particularly remarkable about him, I think his mission speaks volumes about his people and their ways. The Yautja clearly have a bounty hunting class that is specialized in taking down rogue members of their race. I think bounty hunter might not be an accurate description for them, so let me take that back. I think the Enforcer Predator is more akin to police, where his presence keeps the other members of the species in line as they know that breaking the code will have them pursued to the end of the galaxy and killed. In the end, the Enforcer dies before completing his mission, but manages to pass on crucial information that results in the Bad Blood's death. I felt that the Enforcer Predator was worth mentioning here because its existence grants us another peek into the Yautja society, where now we know there exist special predators who are designed to hunt their own kind. Hish-Qu-Ten. The next entry on my list is neither genetically altered nor is it a freak of nature. In fact, the Hish-Qu-Ten is not the name of any single Yautja, but of an entire species. Back during the events that take place in the Predator Forever Midnight novel written by John Shirley, we're introduced to the Hish, who are the ancestors of the Yautja that we know today. I love the fact that the novel greatly expands on the history of the Predators by delving into their far past, something which hadn't been done to that extent before. We learn that the Hith originally belonged to a super hostile planet and had been enslaved by another alien race for centuries called the Amengi. Their overlords, despite not possessing the same physical prowess as the Hish, were far too advanced in terms of technology. For centuries, they toiled for their slave masters with no hope in sight until one of them finally decided to make a stand. A Hish called Kale decided to openly rebel against the Amengi and led his people through a violent struggle to break their chains of slavery, and he succeeded. The ruthless Hish, who had always been ferocious hunters, needed little to no help as they took down one Amengi colony after the other, until they not only freed themselves but also captured their former master's technology. The Hish thereafter were no longer mere brutes, but actually a civilization capable of hyperspace travel and creating dangerous weapons. Over the next few hundred years, they continued to refine their culture and killing arts, all the while adding their own innovations to the Amengi technology. In this manner, the Hish-Qu-Ten emerged from a primitive race of savage berserkers to the universe's premier hunters. One thing I forgot forgot to mention earlier about the Hish was the fact that they had a very unique gland in their body, which is no longer there in their descendants today. This gland, called the kill gland, produced an enzyme that would send the Hish into a frenzy, causing them to kill anything within arm's length. I think it might have been a necessary evolutionary step for their survival in the harsh, swampy environment of their planet. There's also the fact that the Hish can transition between male and female, according to what's necessary during the time of reproduction. Their society, while reminiscent of the Yautja, is very unique in their own ways. And if I were to cover these guys in detail, I could make a whole video on them. Let me know if you want to see that. Witch Predator. The next predator is another unique Yautja who appears in the Predator Hunting Grounds video game. I don't know, maybe I'm just a sucker for predator designs that are more grounded and primal in nature, which is why I absolutely love the Witch Predator for all the reasons I like the Feral Predator from Prey. The Witch Predator, for all intents and purposes, is just an ordinary predator, but what clearly sets her apart from the rest of her kind is the way she appears and even fights. Having arrived on Earth during the earliest days of Britannia, she would be highly moved by the plundering and brutality of the Celtic warbands of the time. Delighted that she'd finally actually found some worthy foes for a hunt, the Witch Predator begins to replace her high-tech armor in favor for more local materials like bones and hide. My theory for why she does this is to increase the thrill of the hunt, and also because she's an honorable warrior. I mean, just look at how the Yautja melt through modern soldiers with all their armor and weapons. Don't you also think it would have been a bit of an overkill for her to hunt in that era while armed to the teeth, in tech that humanity doesn't even possess today? What's the point of hunting mice with a bazooka? Because I think that would exactly be the case if she chose to go down that route. And for a race that lives for the hunt, that would be the complete antithesis of everything she and her people stand for. While she does use her tech regardless, the kills are much more intimate and savage, on top of which we get a badass looking predator. The Witch Predator's battle lust might just be unmatched by any other of her kind in the entire franchise. I'd just like to end this video by saying how lucky we are to be spoiled with so much variety in the Predator franchise. I think more than anything, this is a reflection of the effort the people behind this iconic series put into delivering something new and exciting each time for their fans. Sure, not all of them are a hit, but I think we can all agree that there are more hits than misses, as proven by my video today. The Alien and Predator franchises don't seem to be looking to slow down anytime soon, and as fans with so many older franchises slowly fading into obscurity, I consider this a blessing. Tell me which one of these Predators is your favorite in the comments below. For now though, it's time for me to say goodbye. I hope to see you soon on the next one. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous.